back to the Bold Podcast. I'm Todd Birch, and I'm thrilled to be your guide on this inspiring journey of personal growth and leadership. Together with my guests, we'll dive into transformational stories, uncovering how small, intentional changes can create massive positive results in your life. From overcoming challenges and setting impactful goals to building lasting habits and living with confidence, health, and positivity, we'll explore it all. And if you're ready to embrace a growth mindset and unlock the best version of yourself, then let's spark that transformation today. Today's guest is Dan Flowers, the president and CEO of the Akron-Canton Regional Foodbank, where he has spent nearly 30 years addressing hunger. Under his leadership, the food bank has grown into one of the region's largest nonprofits, distributing over $500 million in emergency food. He's known for his innovative approach, including creating the nation's first online ordering system for food banks. Dan is also active in community boards and advisory councils, including Feeding America's Network Integrity Committee. Outside of work, he's an avid reader, runner, martial artist, guitar player, husband and father to 3 children, and Leadership Akron alumni.
That's right. Good morning, man.
Listeners, get ready for a great episode about leadership. Dan, welcome to the Bolt Podcast, my friend.
Yeah, Todd, good to be with you today, man. Yeah.
So good to kick off a Friday. Like, this doesn't feel like work, does it?
No, it never does.
Right?
Never
this is
does.
the beauty of getting to a position in your life where you can just have some really great conversations with people. I know you're big on relationships, and I'm sure we'll go down that rabbit hole a little bit. But let's first start by this great legacy that you've created. So you've been in the food banking sector for nearly 30 years.
Yeah.
22 years at the Akron-Canton Regional Foodbank.
Yeah.
As president and CEO. I mean, that's a long time, brother.
Yeah.
For anybody, right?
Yeah.
And I'm sure you've led some really incredible initiatives during that time. Has there been any like defining moment? I'm sure there's been several over those years that you would just say, "Oh man, that was a great time in my career for this organization." Yeah,
I think there's been what I kind of think of as eras. When I look back over all these years, before I jump into that, it is great to be with you, Todd.
Yeah.
Thank you for the invitation.
Yeah.
And the opportunity to sit down, and talk about these things. I got a lot of respect for you, the work you do, the brand you're creating. And, so thank you for having me on.
Yeah, absolutely.
I have been given a fair amount of thought to what we talk about today and, how to get to some of these things. If you have a long period of time doing anything, it can fade together in a way. I think a lot of my career, my leadership has been kind of more of a chipping it away than an adding. You know what I mean?
I love that.
Yeah. Like, that saying about the sculptor, this kind of like chips away.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Until the final form is perfected.
Because you have what you need.
Yeah.
Already.
That's kind of where it appears to me. So when I think about instances of my career that stand out, there's certainly been highlights. There's been times where the team was really good. The team was really healthy, functioning well, where we were able to make a lot of progress.
Right.
Looking back, I see sort of order and I see chaos. I see times when we were making big gains where everyone was healthy, and I could think about mistakes that I made, circumstances happening around us that did kind of a disintegration that were more work, that we had to sort of put it back together again. There is one thing that I will say that may be useful on that question, though, specifically for people, is that I do think we come into these jobs with a set of aspirations. We don't know what we don't know, but we do know basically what our sort of North Star is, this sense of who we want to try to be, that sometimes you need tools in order to fully realize. And we went through, this would have been back 2012, 2013, Art of Hosting. It's collaborative leadership training. And it was a really intense period of development for me and the people around me, because it was all about how to facilitate meetings in ways that maximizes collective intelligence. And so I found that in that training, I got a lot better with techniques to have the kind of meetings and the kind of conversations that brought everyone in and maximize what we could do as a group. So I definitely feel like if I was to say one thing transformed my leadership and our cultural experience at the food bank was the time that we spent developing the tools to actually facilitate meetings. That's a kicker, because it's an art. And how you start a meeting, how you gather intelligence, how you break up groups to have conversation, how you select what's meaningful from group in terms of prioritization, how you harvest intelligence, how you gain alignment on the top priorities, and how you activate on that is skillful work. And so I think I always had this sort of democratic mindset of leadership. But it wasn't until I got those tools that I think I was able to create a collective sense that that's who we were. And it wasn't just something I aspired to but failed at. So,
interesting.
Yeah.
Did you seek out those tools, or did somebody, how did you end up going after that program?
So we had a gal on our team who just on her own started going to this. I think she'd read about it or heard about it online. And so she went and she started introducing all these things that to me initially seemed like a waste of time. She came back from this retreat and she was like, let's start having a check-in before every meeting. And I'm like, well, we kind of do that. I mean, we talk about what's going on, or we kick it before the meeting. And she was like, let's focus a little bit on specific items to check in and start building this sense of both personal and professional thoughts and be selective. And so we created this check-in jar with, name a celebrity you've met. Sometimes they were not even work-related. Most times they're not work-related. And then checkouts. And so we instituted a check-in and a checkout at the beginning and end of every meeting, board meetings included. Sometimes it takes 15 minutes to get around and have everybody talk before the meeting. We don't just jump into any meetings. Well, what we started seeing is that people who previously would just come, not talk, get in their car and drive home, started getting plugged in, started sharing things about their life, and started participating more in the meetings. It's there's a term that words are the currency of our relational economy.
Yep.
So if you don't exchange words, you built no collective value. That little thing alone shifted it. And I could give you a dozen more examples of little things that we started doing as a result of that. It shifted our way of being. It shifted our outcomes, shifted our look at strategy, and I think also shifted the way the organization sees me as a leader, because it really, again, democratized the experience of being in the organization. It stopped being sort of a top-down thing at that point. And so I use those techniques in every meeting I'm in.
Wow, that's amazing. I love the fact, and I think this shows what kind of leader you are, right? That somebody on your team came to you. This idea didn't come from you.
Yeah.
Right? It came up, and you were open to that. And I think that's a good lesson here, right? Because a lot of times you have leaders who just sit at the top, and if it's not my idea, it's not going to happen, right? So it's again being in an open growth mindset, which you and I have talked a lot about mindsets. I think that's critical. But
it's funny, I'm sorry, Ty. We resist the things we need oftentimes. Right. So a lot of times I think, if we have a sense that we might have a gap, or just somebody's approach makes us think that they think we do, it's hard to not get defensive, So, yeah, but I think it is super important to be open to, what people bring to the table, even if it is in response to a weakness or a deficiency on our part.
Right, yeah, and meetings are so critical. We spend so much time in meetings. I love, I've been on several boards with nonprofits, and I've been involved and worked with a lot of nonprofits. And it's interesting that some nonprofits are not ran like a business. And I don't want to get into the weeds on it, but what I'm hearing from you is you're running this thing like a business. Because it is. At the end of the day, nonprofit, for-profit, you got to run this thing like a business.
Yeah, that comes up a lot.
Right. Does it? Okay.
Nonprofit, you hear a lot of people talk about running things like a business.
Yeah.
The only difference between a nonprofit and a business is that I don't have an equity share. If I did, I'd have sold it a long time ago. You know, it's been a very successful organization.
Right.
But the principles that make any organization effective, they're the same.
Right.
And so we're fortunate. We've got a really good board, a lot of people from, really rich corporate and nonprofit backgrounds that have helped guide us and instruct us. And, I've always been a really regimented person. And so, we've done our best to implement things that create effectiveness and drive effectiveness for the organization. And it's caused us to be very progressive in a lot of things that we do.
Yeah.
It was funny you mentioned in that introduction this online ordering thing. This is kind of a side thing, but it was interesting. I think everybody's career has an early win. I'm always coaching young people. Listen, you got to figure out that one thing that's going to get the spotlight on you. You know, you start your career as a producer. We're all producers generally in the beginning. But you got to look for a defining project in the first 3 to 5 years of your first kind of real career job. And for me, I was driving around northern Michigan as an agency relations coordinator at the Foodbank of Eastern Michigan in Flint in the mid-90s. The internet was just coming out. A lot of people had like Packard Bell computers they got from Best Buy with 256 megabytes, you know.
Oh, yeah.
14.4 dial-up modems. Yeah, exactly. Anyway, every week we would produce the provider. It was a newsletter that had the food that we had available on it, and we would send it from Flint, where the food bank was headquartered, up to Mackinac City and, you know, Tawas. Take 2 or 3 days for it to get there, and by the time it even arrived, the agencies in Flint would have already got that and ordered all the good stuff off the menu.
Oh, gotcha.
So the agencies were always complaining about it, and I was like, man, there's this thing, the internet, you know. Maybe we can use it to solve this problem. So I asked my boss if I could get Microsoft Front Page. It was like an early website making. You're
horrible, but I remember. I'm a web designer.
Yeah. So you know about Front Page.
Oh, yeah.
So I got Front Page, and I made a website for the food bank. They didn't have one at the time, fbem.org. And then we started taking PDF pictures of our menu every day and uploading PDFs. And I made a little simple form fill-out box where they could enter in the numbers of what they wanted. And it spit out a little email with their order on it. Well, it was the first food bank in the country to have online ordering. We were the first one to beat this problem of the lag in mailing their things.
In the country.
In the country. Yeah, so, you know, I was in my mid-20s. And, you know, we got this big award, and I flew all over the country. And all of a sudden, I was on the map. And it wasn't anything but just like me figuring out how to do it. I didn't know anything about websites. I'd never done a website,
Right.
but my brother and I sat down and we figured out how to make one, and we figured out some way to come up with a workable solution. Well, it wasn't long, 2 years, and pretty much every one of those agencies had some person from their church board doing their ordering, and it just took off like wildfire. And so it taught me a real lesson. If you keep an eye open for some way to innovate at whatever level you're in, whether it's an administrative solution, whether it's something that you can scale out in some kind of a network, whether it's a research project, something that you can pounce on and define an early win through, then your career is on the way. People want to see that from you because there's a lot of other things that go behind a win like that, right? Like, just your initiative and the character.
Right.
So anyway, to young professionals listening, look for an early win and get after it and talk about it. That's another thing. If young people don't talk about it, I'm thinking about what's on my radar screen, and that's two things: wins and problems.
Right.
And most people are either not on my radar screen at all. I'm celebrating the fact that they're driving wins and productivity for the organization or their problems. So pick which one you're going to be.
I love that, man. I love that. You got me thinking like, what was my win, or did I even have a win? But I think it goes back to being proactive and just working hard, right? Like doing the work. And I think that's potentially a lost art, that I'm just going to come in and everything's just going to be given to me. So I think we need to instill that, because with that, you're going to build resilience. You're going to fail. You're going to learn. And I also think we need leaders who empower their people so people feel like they could bring an idea to the table, that it wouldn't be a lost cause.
Going back to that last point too, Todd, about how to distinguish yourself. Sometimes you can distinguish yourself just by being responsive. And what I mean by that is every day I wake up in the morning and I have a burden for every facet of the organization, every risk, every problem, every person, every asset. It's all on my mind. I'm responsible for every bit of it. Every employee who makes themselves available to me, that answers my phone call or text quickly, that gets their stuff reported is submitted on time, that's there when I walk in the morning, is sharing that burden with me, and I see it. And those are the people that I want around me. I don't want people that aren't sharing the burden and letting me know it. And so I think that, even if you don't have a defining project, your defining element can simply be a willingness to share the load. and a willingness to do the work. Eventually, if you're delivering good work, you're still going to get your breakthrough.
Right. Right.
You know.
Yeah, but I think the key there is the willingness. You got to be be able to get in there, right? Get your hands dirty and do some work.
Yeah, make a decision.
Right.
Make a decision.
Wow, I mean it's such a long time to be at the same organization.
Yeah.
And you started off, 32 years old.
Yeah.
That's extremely young to be in charge, president and CEO of one of the largest nonprofit organizations, at least in our community.
Yeah, it is,
and responsible for 100
employees. Yeah,
100 employees. That's a lot of lives. What kind of mistakes? What kind of failures? That you're willing to share that you had immense learning moments. Where I had to be a lot, right? And I'm just saying because I can't imagine myself, at that age taking on such a responsibility. But somebody believed in you and said, "Hey, this guy's got the goods. He's got the character traits. He's got an open mindset. He's going to go after it.
Yeah,
and he's going to share that. This is a nonprofit. You got to be in it.
It's a ministry.
Your passion. It's a ministry. Yeah, your passion's got to be there.
Yeah. Well, I think they knew I was going to get after it. I mean, I think my energy, even at 55, is still, people can sense it. At 32, it was almost too much, But yeah, I mean, and I would also say too, it was a solid agency when I took it, but it wasn't anywhere nearly. I mean, there was 19 people working there. We distributed last year 40 million pounds of food. Well, the first year I was at this food bank, it was like 7.5 million. So, I mean, we have had a ton of growth. I don't think that my food bank today would hire 32-year-old Dan. I think they'd be looking for somebody that's got a little bit more time in.
Right.
So I do think that I still think they took a chance on me, as a first-time CEO at that age. But I don't think that the board would take that same chance with the organization today.
Right.
So I would like to qualify that. But I've talked a lot about some of the things that I've learned and some of the mistakes that I sort of made early on in my career. You take a job like this, you don't know what you don't know. Mm-hmm. I'd read a lot of leadership books, but those can only take you so far.
Right.
I think that if I was to boil down, probably the two things that set me back that I learned most in that early era, say the first 5 years, was I was scared a lot and I didn't know it. And so I had a lot of people working for me that were a lot older than me. Most of my leaders that were there when I got there, I had like 4 or 5 direct reports who were 20 years or more older than I was.
Oh, wow.
And they intimidated me.
Yeah.
I don't necessarily think they supported me even getting the job. I mean, I was a kid from out of town.
Right.
So I didn't know anybody in the community. I didn't know them. We were cordial, but they also knew a ton of things I didn't know about life and leadership.
Right.
I was this hard-charging kid, and I think a lot of times I was much more harsh than I needed to be in conversations with them because I was so scared of them. And I've realized in retrospect that a lot of times we substitute or we cover our fear by maybe being a little more aggressive or choosing words with an edge out of fear. It's the flight or fight. Yeah,
syndrome,
exactly.
Right?
Yeah,
and it's just embedded in us, right?
Yeah. Well, so I'm not scared anymore.
Right.
And so I can be a lot more gentle in conversations with people. And so looking back, that's one thing I would just generally coach people to be aware of the role of fear before you have a big meeting, especially if you're talking about someone's performance. Because if you're really scared, nervous, shaking going in, there's a stronger likelihood that you're going to mask that by saying something that's got more of an edge on it than it needs to have. Right. And you can easily walk out with regrets as a result of it.
Right. So emotional intelligence.
Exactly.
Being in touch with your emotions goes a long way.
That's a big one. And the other one was just like being super hasty to make decisions, jumping on things faster than I needed to, and that just sort of like comes with time.
Yep.
Knowing how to play it. But
patience.
Yeah. I've spent most of my life working against fear. I think it's the unknown. ball and chain on most people's ankle. And of course I see it more as I get older, but I think that young people should keep an eye out for that. There's another thing too about because I mentioned leadership books.
Yeah.
I think there's only 2 leadership books a person needs to read.
Okay.
Good to Great.
Jim
Good to Great by
Collins.
Jim Collins. Yep. And Stephen Covey's 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. Those to me are like the Bibles. If let's say you get a bachelor's degree in fine arts or, philosophy or music or whatever, you can still be a CEO. You got to learn a little bit about how businesses work. I think those books do a pretty good job kind of covering the basics. You can supplement it, but those are the 2 I would say are required reading. But I would also counsel people that there is fear, this compulsion to, sharpen the saw, to try to stay ahead of the next guy. Your competition's probably reading leadership books this weekend. Well, hey, maybe you might do better if you just chill out and read a John Grisham story or just go fishing. You got to cultivate a restful mindset and a clear mindset. And I think a lot of things that you need, you just learn on the job. So, that's my thing about books and learning in general. You got to give yourself the time to let those lessons sort of just emerge.
Gotcha.
So, anyway.
Okay. No, love it. And we'll have those books in the show notes. I love those. Yeah, Good to Great I read in my 30s, and that kind of changed the way that I looked at business. I didn't really know much about it. I wasn't really involved. Certainly didn't think I'd be an entrepreneur or have my own business, but that book was enlightening for sure. And then Stephen Covey's 7 Habits of Highly Successful People, that's a no-brainer. That's on the shelf. That should be a staple.
Guaranteed,
in everybody's book.
Yeah.
Keep referring back to that one.
I have, over the course of my life, since I read that book, almost 30 years, right after it came out, I got Good to Great. And then I read a bunch of other Jim Collins stuff too, because Good to Great was actually not his first book. I think Built to Last. Yeah, it was his first one, I think. I have been pulling back layers of understanding about what truly is the paradoxical blend of humility and resolve. That to me has been the most useful sentence in my leadership journey. What is it to come to a full understanding of what you lack, what annoys people about you, your deficiencies, maybe the things that you overexert, times that you use your strengths to the detriment of yourself and other people. I can think about every time I've ever done the Strengths Finder thing, discipline comes back as my top. I've done it 3 times. I can't fake not getting discipline at the top of my list, which you would think is always a good thing. Until, I'm missing time with my family because I've got to get my run in. I got to get my workout in. You know what I mean? So there are times where I think I've taken it probably too far at times. Okay. Being disciplined and regimented.
Gotcha.
And so, so I have to have the humility to see, honestly, how my life affects other people, how my leadership, how my decisions affect other people. And so the question is, after you take that full inventory, can you summon the resolve to continue? A lot of people are broken by it. If you're honest enough about who you are really, then you'll either be broken by it or you'll be humbled by it to the extent to which you can actually be a softer, more gentle, easier person in the world. And that to me is the defining element of the paradoxical blend of humility and resolve as the defining aspect of level 5, the highest level of leadership. Are the people who, my brother said, it's unfortunate that the only pathway to humility is humiliation. And if learning the truth about you isn't a little humiliating, then you're probably not listening.
Right.
Okay. So then in that truth, if you can still lead, how different will you be? Well, of course you're going to be more open to other people. Of course you're not going to yell at them. Of course you're going to try to soften your edges. And those are the best leaders.
Yep.
But you cannot get there without humility, and you cannot gain humility without pain and self-reflection. There's no other way. There's no other road.
Right. and that's stepping out of your comfort zone. And I think I've been really fascinated with just mindsets. Been doing a lot of research on that, preparing for a book that I plan to launch next year.
Okay, congratulations. So a book you're writing?
Yes, absolutely.
What's it called?
I'm still working on it.
All right.
Still trying to figure that out. But generally focusing on the mindset and coming off of Carol Dweck's work on a fixed mindset versus an open mindset. And I think to me that what you're talking about is really that continuum of starting at a fixed and coming into an open or growth mindset.
Yeah, well said.
If you're in a fixed mindset, you are not going to be open to challenges. You are not going to be open to criticism or feedback, right? You're going to fail and not keep trying, right? You're not going to step out of your comfort zone. So if you're going to be a great leader, or really the best version of yourself, you have to be open. You have to be open to feedback. Again, to humility, right? You know, you have to be open to stepping out of your comfort zone and the possibility that you might fail, and that's okay, but you're open to just growing and learning. And then when you set that precedent, your team, all the people that are underneath you, they see that and they want to be like that. So anyhow, I didn't want to, but just when you're saying that, I'm thinking, really, it all comes down to the mindset that you're in. But there are several people that are just stuck in this fixed mindset. And a lot of people that say, if you were to ask them, they'd say they're in a growth mindset, but they're not really. They're kind of in this middle point of the continuum, right? They may be open to it, maybe tried a few things, but they're still not moving the needle.
Yeah, and I can spot that. We all know leaders that have gained a fair amount of influence and affluence in the community, who have a certain abrasiveness or a certain, I don't know, man, ostentatiousness, that I see as fear. Because if you're not anybody who's taken themselves, I mean, they're a dry personality types, But if you're a person that takes yourself really seriously and to the point to which other people can't relax around you,
right.
That means there's something wrong. I see that as a weakness.
Yeah.
A fear. Maybe at some point they developed an inferiority complex, and so they tend to mask it through dressing a certain way or keeping people at a certain distance. But most people I know that have done their work, that are like fully actualized people, unless they have some kind of personality quirk or something like that, they make their mission is to make other people feel comfortable. I would, in fact, if it isn't your mission, then that's a problem.
Right. Right. Exactly.
I don't want to be around people.
Right.
That aren't on a mission to make other people comfortable with who they are.
Right. I think that's leading with empathy.
Yeah.
Right.
For sure. This is for all of us, right? A lifetime of observations and
lifetime. I love that. Lifetime of observations. It's a journey, man. One of the things that I've learned, Dan, and I have a life coach, high performance coach. I've been working with her for 4 years, and last year, she really, two things that my focus word was grace. And we could go down a tunnel with that, and then you're probably the same way. I'm really hard on myself. But she really told me to embrace the journey. I was so focused on the end game, checking that box, getting to the top of the summit and being, hey, I'm here. I wasn't really enjoying that process and that full journey. And once I shifted my mindset to really embrace it, man, it changed everything. Changed everything, right? So now I'm just like, it's an infinite game, like Simon Sinek says. I'm not focused on the end. To me, there is no end. I'm just iterating. I'm just trying to get 1% better every day. That's it, right? So,
yeah, isn't that's kind of like the idea of Zen and the art of motorcycle maintenance, that Robert Pershing book, that was so popular in the early 90s. It was all about, guys on a motorcycle trip. And as he works on his motorcycle, he starts to uncover this reality that it's the getting there. And the whole book, at least to me, was a metaphor of enjoying the journey.
Enjoying the journey.
Yeah.
Yep. It's easy to get caught up. We're busy. Let's talk a little bit more about leadership, because I love this, and we have a lot of listeners that are leaders or inspiring leaders. I think this is really cool that your organization has been recognized as one of the top places to work. And that, I don't know about you, but as a leader, like, that would be one of the things that I'd be most proud of.
Oh, for sure.
especially 100 plus people, again, a lot of lives. I'm responsible for 10 to 15 lives in my small business, and one changes everything, right? So how do you build a culture that allows your team to embrace collaboration, innovation, avoid burnouts? Like, let's be honest, like most nonprofits, it's a lot of work, right? And potentially, I'm not saying your organization, but in most cases, the money's not there in respect to the roles, right? It's a nonprofit. So how do you keep your team motivated? How do you win an award like that? And I know for you, I'm sure it's not about the award, that just happens to come along, right? But still, to win that multiple years in a row, that says a lot about you and the organization and your people. So are there any silver bullets here or gold nuggets that you can share for other people building a team?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, fortunately, I do get that question, like how did you get this culture where it is or whatever? I can boil it down to two things. One, a fanatical commitment to high quality work. If you don't have that ability and that commitment, it's a pretty easy conversation, if you're not really, really doing great work. So you have to, that's the price of admission on the performance side. Secondly, we have a sign with a cool story behind it I don't have time to tell in our conference room, and it says, "In this house, we do second chances, we do grace, we do real, we do mistakes, we do I'm sorries, we do hugs, we do family, we do love." And so that's the character side. And what I have found over the years is that if we get people that can do those things well, the soft skills, the intangibles, the I'm sorries, if you can't ask for forgiveness and admit you're wrong and grant the same to other people, you're not going to probably be in any relationship that long, And if you can't deliver high quality work and don't have a fanatical commitment to it, you probably can't deliver the high quality that we need in order to be an organization of excellence. Those two things seem to be what comes where it all kind of comes from.
Okay.
So those are my people filters. If somebody isn't laying down the work really quick, we make a move pretty fast on them. If people don't have the ability to say they're sorry or forgive people or whatever, if they're too pretentious or whatever, they tend to not last long either. And once when I figured that out and became very very committed to making sure that our people could balance those two, then the culture then kind of took over and became self-reinforcing. Certainly for an award like that, NC 99 award, a lot of it's based on like employee benefits, compensation or whatever. And I've always had a pretty progressive view of that too, that, I want my people to know I love them. And more than that at times, I want them to get what I want for me. And so I look at everything that I want for me as a likely want for them, and I do everything I can to give them that. It's simple,
So would you say those are the kind of the core values of the organization? Do you guys have like a set core values? It kind of sounds like that story you read is almost like kind of a mission-ish core values.
Yeah, I mean, I would almost say that.
I would love to have a picture of that, by the way.
Sure. I'll send it to you.
Include.
Yeah. I think that I almost feel like in this house we do second chances. That is almost more important than our core values, because anytime you sit down with a group of people and you're just like, what are our core values? A lot of the same things come up.
Yeah, integrity, accountability, excellence.
Yeah, exactly. Well, those are the kind of things that good people do. If you have a fanatical commitment to high quality work and you've got enough character to stay in relationships for a long time, you're probably going to align on values, just in general. So I'm looking for more of those things. And one of the things that I think has supported our culture over the years is longevity. I mean, I've been there for a long time, and a lot of my people have been with me the whole time too. And we were friends. We raised our kids together. We've been to our family members' funerals. I've coached team members through divorces and losses of parents, and mine too. My staff members have stuck with me through my crisis in life, So you kind of become a community over time. And that led me to, I think, one of my most other significant realizations in life is that the longevity of a person's relationships with people and institutions is the greatest indicator of their character. Bar none.
We can just stop there.
Mm-hmm. Bar none.
Yeah, that's it.
That's it.
Yeah.
So if you come into my life with lifelong friendships, a long marriage, a long employment history with one person, then it says to me that you're stable, and more importantly, you've said you're sorry and you've forgiven people. Because any relationship that goes long enough has to have those elements.
Oh, I love that.
You know? And so, and the people that come to you with 2 to 5 years, you know, okay, what? It's okay to make a couple jumps here and there. But if you are a serial relationship jumper, I don't think you're safe for relationships, for me at least. I'm not looking for 2-year relationships. You know what I mean?
Right.
I'm looking for people that want to make a run, a life run, and share life with me and share good work with me. And I don't think you can build anything of quality in a short time. It just doesn't work that way.
It doesn't. I love it. Relationships are huge. Obviously very important to you. We've seen the benefits of that, right, with the longevity of you, your team, your accomplishments at the food bank.
Well, here's the thing on that, if I could jump in on that, because here's the thing on that. If somebody told 20-year-old Todd, hey, listen, bro, I know you're going through a really hard time right now, but if you stick with it, there'll be a richness 20 years from now that I can't explain. You probably would have heard it and thought, yeah, but if you can't explain it and I can't know it, so it's not real.
Right.
It's not real to you. If you would have told me when my wife and I got married 20 years ago what it would feel like to go to bed at night next to the mother of my kids who are fully grown, who I know in a completely different way than I did before, you know, certainly before they were born, but when they were even 5 or 7, you know, the richness of having a wife that we've buried our parents together and our grandparents together and our siblings and our neighbors, and we've been to weddings, and we've done it all. She's witnessed me as the worst version of me and the best version of me. And we've grown and laid down so many things. And here we are. I woke up next to her this morning. Well, there's a richness to that you can't. Okay, here you go. If I was to tell you that the most meaningful relationships in your life come from these things, do you think they're going to give those things away? Is like the most meaningful relationship you could have as a human being going to be free?
Right.
Without effort or struggle? It's not. That's not how it works. And so, you know, anyway, I just get really wound up on that because now I look around at my life from this position and I'm like, my God, I'm so glad I didn't blow it. You know what I mean? I'm so glad I didn't walk away when it was hard.
Right,
I'm so glad I didn't walk away when it was hard at the food bank during the pandemic or the thing 10 beers before that.
Right.
And that's brought me to another saying, which is don't quit when it's hard, quit when it's done.
Right. Right.
You know, people mistake tired for done every day, and they walk away on relationships and jobs that weren't done. And I would tell anybody, anytime you say, I'm done with so-and-so, I'm done with this or that, step back and ask yourself soberly, am I maybe just tired? And if the answer is, I could be tired, I think I'm tired, don't do anything stupid. You know what I mean?
Right.
Stay the course, take a break, and then see where you're at. Because once you tell yourself, I'm done with winter, you're screwed. You're screwed for 2 more months. I'm done with this relationship. It's probably not going to work out. It's probably unsavable. I'm done with this or that. I'm done with this job. No. Ask yourself before you say that, maybe, am I just tired?
Yeah, I love that, Dan. And it goes back to a concept I think I share with you a little bit, this practice program that I went through called Positive Intelligence. I bring it up in every episode. The listeners are probably tired of me talking about it, but I talk about it because it freaking works, and I'm very passionate about it. But Shirzad Chamine talks about finding the gift and the opportunity in every scenario, every situation. And you can't do that unless you have an open mind, right? So make no assumptions that there's everybody's struggling with something. So you talk about relationships, right? And saying I'm tired or I'm done. Well, take a step back, pause, reflect, and think about, they probably are struggling with something. Maybe they didn't get back to you in time. People get all upset, so you can get an email back the next day or a text message right away. Well, maybe something's going on with their family, or something. So, and it's funny because I've learned that over time, because I, had a struggle with patience a little bit over the years. Sounds like maybe you had some troubles with that. And as I've built patience through positive intelligence, it's allowed me to, like you said, just stop, not quit, not call it done, and just try to find the gift in winter. So, you know what? You don't like winter? Well, too bad. You live here. So, embrace it, man. Like, find something. It's a time, maybe you can spend more time reading. You're going to be inside, or maybe getting that project and finishing the basement finally, or spending more time with your kids playing board games. Or there's something, there's a gift there. Just be open to it. That's just it. It's the whole notion of just getting out of this damn fixed mindset and just being open to things. And it comes back to one word: being curious. Okay. If we could just be curious, right? Like when we were a kid, that inner child, right? Where we just explore. We're just open. We have no predetermined thoughts. Man, if we're open, we're looking for gifts and opportunities.
That's a super good
empty
point,
cup.
man.
Bruce Lee says the best cup to have is an empty cup, because you're just open to everything and anything.
Amen. Yeah, love it.
Right?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Anyhow, lots of nuggets here, man. Great conversation. Let's learn a little bit more about Dan Flowers. So what's a day in the life like of Dan Flowers?
Well,
leader of a big organization.
As you would guess, pretty regimented.
Yeah.
Pretty
I love
regimented.
It. Structure.
Yeah. I mean, I'm really one for streaks. If I get a streak going, it's really, really hard to stop.
Okay.
For me. Like, I'll give you an example. In 1999, before Y2K, I started cleaning my desk at the food bank in Flint. And I was like, I think next year I don't want a single piece of paper on my desk when I go home from work. No sticky notes, no nothing. I'm going to file everything before I leave, and I'm not going to have anything on my desk. 25 years later, I haven't missed a day. There hasn't been a single piece of paper on any desk I've ever sat at in 25 years. So, I could give you, I probably got a dozen streaks like that going. Some are really stupid. Like, it's been, I don't know, probably 20 years since I threw a piece of paper in a trash can, a wrap or something, and missed and didn't pick it up. I have to pick it up. So, I got a lot of things like that.
I love that.
And it's OCD for sure.
Yeah.
And I've wrestled with that. I mean, I can remember one time I was sitting in my office.
I'm with you.
And I took a stack of sticky notes and I set them in the front corner of my desk, a new stack.
Yep.
And I was trying to get them squared with the front of the desk. And I got them so they looked pretty good. And when I got out to my car, I was like, man, I bet you that damn sticky notes, they're probably... And I almost went back in.
Oh, my gosh.
And that's when I was like, don't do it.
That's ridiculous.
Don't do
right?
it, Dan.
I know.
I know where this is headed. Well, it has in a lot of ways headed that way.
Yeah.
I have wrestled a lot with OCD in my life, the bad kind,
Right, yeah.
The bad kind. And it's manifested for me in worry and things like that. But, discipline is a big part of it. So my days now, as I've gotten older, I don't like to get up with an alarm. And, I've had to eat my words a lot because I don't know how many times I walked around saying work starts at 8, be here at 8 o'clock. Well, I got some people that are going to be there at 8 every day, but I'm kind of the point in my life now where I'm not going to be one of them. Yeah, I like to wake up when I wake up. My kids are grown. I can work all day. I work at night. I work on the weekends. Right. I've never not worked all the time. All I do is work. So when I go is when I wake up. Okay. And so I usually get up, drink a cup of coffee, and then I have what I call my daily office where, I do my email, I look at my day. I journal every day. I've done that for years.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, that's a big thing. We'll talk about journaling.
Okay, good.
Shoot into work the full day. Usually I have meetings all day, which means I'm going to have a lot of work to do, just my own, And so I leave the office every day, 5 o'clock or so. Go home. I always work out every day. I do at least 60 minutes exercise every day. I've done it my whole life. I don't think I've had a couple surgeries that kind of broke my streak. But other than that, I've done at least 30 minutes of cardio 2 days a week for 30 years straight. I just never miss.
Streaks.
Yeah, I just streaks, man.
Yeah, I've never heard it quite like that. I love it because
Yeah.
it's a habit.
Yeah,
Right?
I get a
That's
streak
really-
going. Then I don't want to break it.
Right.
So I just keep doing it. Then usually after that, dinner with my wife, and then I putz. I don't sit around and watch TV. So I putz. I go in the garage. I like to bow hunt. I like to work out. I go to jiu-jitsu. Whatever thing I'm working on.
Right.
Woodwork, taxidermy. I like to do taxidermy.
Right. But it's a hobby. It's something that's totally different from work.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, putz.
Yeah.
That's my life.
So what about this journaling?
Well,
we talked a little bit about this.
Yeah, I
Huge.
didn't journal until my dad died
Okay.
in 2021. I remember growing up, and we were very religious, Free Methodist family, and I would wake up in the morning, and my dad was always doing his devotions. He'd have his Bible out, he's reading the Bible, he'd sit out there in his underwear. And he'd start praying, fall asleep. I'd walk out there, he'd be snoozing, in his underwear with his Bible in his lap. It was cool.
Love it.
Yeah. But and he always would journal, and then all my life I grew up. He had seen his Bible with his little spiral notebook over top of it. So they always went together in my mind. My dad, his devotions and his journal. But when he died, I felt like I could maybe read them, and so he had a stack of these spiral
Oh my gosh.
journals in his
Years.
closet.
Okay.
Yeah, years, kept them all.
Oh my
And
gosh.
so I'd flip them up. A lot of times, half the time they didn't have a date. They were just like a paragraph he'd scribble. Right. But they were prayers for us, his worries, his struggles. I was like, man, Dad, it made him so real to me, reading it. So vulnerable, so relatable.
What a treasure, man.
Oh, it was beautiful.
That's
a gift, bro.
Yeah, that's a huge gift.
Yeah. And so I was like, I'm going to start journaling. So I found this great app. Day One is the app, Day One. And I decided in 2021, while I was working through my grief of him dying, I would just journal. So I journaled through the year. The app has a cool feature where you can print your journals into a hardcover book. So I did that year, and it was like 60 pages. And so I was like, I'm going to do this next year. I'm going to journal every day. So I got a streak going. I journaled every day in 2022, and I printed like a 380-page journal. I wrote, it's hard copy. I got it at home on the shelf. I wrote what I was doing that day, but I also wrote my family history and my prayers and my stuff for the kids. And I wrote like who I want to get on my crap when I die, just in detail, everything. Then I did it again the next year, and I just kept doing it, And so I've got like 5 bound books on my shelf from this app, Day One.
That's beautiful, man. And you do this in the morning?
Yeah. This year I'm doing a photo project. So when I get up in the morning now, I've been going around taking pictures of like photo albums and stuff. And I'm just like taking a picture and talking about that picture, telling who's in it, what was happening at the time.
Okay.
And so this year I'm going to print a 365-page photo book.
Gotcha.
That's this year's journal project. But it has kind of been troublesome because there's been a couple things I wanted to journal about that because I'm doing a photo project, it didn't really fit into that motif. I need to fire up my other journal so I can vent.
Right, and just get it out. How much time do you spend journaling each day, if you don't mind me asking?
10 to 20 minutes.
Okay, that's a good pinch.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Interesting. Yeah, journal. We talk a lot about journaling on the show. I'm a big advocate of it. I have struggled with making it a habit. Ironically, as much as I talk about habits, and I'm very much like you, regimen, structure. I love streaks. I'm big streak guy. When you fall off the streak, getting back on to start a new one, right? That's a little tough. But yeah, journaling I've struggled with. I have a little bullet journal that I created. I think I showed it to you, my custom one. So it's just real quick hits, wins, and things. But the sit down, like, let's talk about the day or week or month. That's been a struggle for me this year, getting in the mode. But I just got my first entry in last week. It felt really good, just to get it out there. So it was more of a reflection of the month instead of a, day to day. But,
if you don't feel like journaling though, you're like, it's okay not to. I feel like, it's funny because like sometimes I feel like when my mental health is best, I tend to work out the least. I tend to journal the least. It's weird. Like I look at those as sustaining disciplines in my life. And so to a certain extent, like if I'm struggling, man, I'm going to write a lot. I'm going to work out more.
So it's therapeutic for you.
Yeah, all that stuff is, the Buddha was fat. He'd never worked out, I don't know what he wrote. He probably didn't write anything.
Yeah.
So like to me, a lot of my discipline that I've seen as so critical to my edge, my success, to me are almost at this stage in life an indication of maybe even something that it would be, that it's good to be able to let down a little bit. Like I look at the storms in my life and those disciplines like working out and cleaning my desk and all these things, like they're good things. And I think that they carried me through a lot of storms. But I also think that they are rooted in an inability to simply be okay with me, like the animals are with themselves. And so there is like, it's becoming symbolic to me of, I at least am trying to correlate not doing my disciplines with me actually being healthy. Yeah, because like my fanatical regimentation was two-part. One, good for me because it helped make me successful in business. Two, a symptom of my interior discomfort and disorder, perhaps, to a degree.
Yeah, I can agree with that. This has been great, man. Lots of great nuggets. How about some quick fire questions?
Sure.
All right. If you could have a conversation with one person, dead or alive, anybody, who would that be? Mm-hmm. Sit down conversation with somebody, and what would you talk about?
You know, on this question, I don't want to have a conversation. I want to do stuff. So for me, you know, like if I could go back in time and do anything, dude, I'd want to be a Comanche hunter on the open plains out on a bison hunt. If I could spend a day with those people, go have the full hunt, kill a bison, build a big fire out on the prairie, dance around with my Native American brothers and sisters under the open skies and the plains, breathing that fresh air, blowing across the you know, say 600 years ago, that's what I'd do. Ooh. 100.
All right.
I don't want to talk to anybody. If my dad came back from the dead, I'd probably like give him a hug and say, you know, I'm cleaning the garage, we'll come in and help me out. And just, that's what we do. We just go and start working. I don't really want to talk.
Yeah.
You know?
Okay.
I want to go hunting.
Yeah. So at the end of life, how do you want to be remembered? You know, this is Stephen Covey. This is...
Begin with the end in mind.
Right. Begin with the end in mind. Love this, right? I think if we all just sat with this every day, I think we'd be better people.
Yeah, I wrote at the advice of my therapist. I saw a therapist for 6 months back in like 2011. She really helped me out.
Yeah.
And when I first went and saw her, she was like, she recommended I write my obituary. And that was like a game plan, a template for me. Mm-hmm. And since then, I've just been living my way into what I wrote that day. For me, number one, dependable. I want to die as a reliable person. That's it.
Okay.
To the people in my life.
Gotcha.
So, I mean, obviously there's a legacy from the organization and all that that's important to me. Right. But the number one attribute in my life that I want to display for the people around me is simply that they can count on me.
Okay. Love that. So if you could leave our listeners with one last thought, this one last nugget from Dan Flowers, what would you drop out?
Professionally, I would say get after it. Get after it. Work. That's it.
Yeah. Got it. Love it, man.
Yeah.
Well, this has been great, Dan. I appreciate you sharing some words with us today. Appreciate your time.
Yeah, I enjoyed it. It's fun talking. Thanks for letting me kind of riff a little bit. And, you know, I would say to other people, if I can, if we have just a second, if somebody is in crisis and they're listening to me, get help. That's probably the last thing. It's not all about getting hard. Sometimes it's about getting help. Go see a therapist, whatever. Check in with somebody if you're in crisis, you know, and ask for help. And don't be ashamed. Ask for food if you need it, you know. That's been my life's work.
Right.
Is trying to get people to ask for help when they need it. So and maybe that's a good note to end on.
It is. We all need help.
Yep.
And it's okay. Right. It's okay.
Thanks, Tom.
Excellent. Thank you for listening to this episode of the Bolt Podcast. You're on an inspiring journey of growth, transformation, and joy, and I'm honored to be a part of it. If you found this episode valuable, please like, share it with your friends, and consider leaving a review. It means the world to us. For show notes, resources, and to subscribe to the weekly Motivational Monday newsletter, please visit toddbirch.com. And don't forget to follow us on social media @TheBolt with Todd B for more inspiration. Remember, real change doesn't happen overnight, folks. Start small, stay consistent, and watch as your growth unfolds. See you next time.